Your Denver Broncos just get a sneaky advantage before their game on Sunday. We waste no time with our newest move, why I think he's the perfect addition for the Broncos at this point. We also have some crazy advantages over the Houston Texans that we have to talk about. That and way more in this video. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan named Ben. If you're a diehard Broncos fan, this is the place for you. Help me hit that 30,000 sub mark. Smash that like and subscribe button. Let's dive in. So this game has massive playoff implications for both us and the Houston Texans. Love this graph that was tweeted out here that shows like with a win what our percentage of making the playoffs is and with a loss is. So your Broncos go from like where they're sitting at right now, like a 70% chance of making it. If we win, we are as close to being a lock as you can. We go to a 90% chance of winning, of making the NFL playoffs. If we lose, it drops down to 66. Obviously, not the end of the world, but you would love to be sitting at that 90% chance of making the playoffs. The Texans, on the other side, go up to a 60% chance of making the playoffs with a win, and they drop down to a 30% chance with a loss because they have no chance of catching the Colts in that division, so they truly need to win out and have all the tiebreakers they can in the AFC, so they're playing like this is a playoff game. If you've been following the Broncos for a long time, going east for an 11 a.m. start time has been the Broncos' Achilles heel. Sean Payton has truly flipped that, and we dominated when we went, obviously, and played in Philly at 11 a.m. We've shown that the Broncos have broken that streak. But this week, while it looks like we're going to an 11 a.m. start, Sean Payton is already way ahead of it and remembers that because of daylight savings time, you actually set your clocks back an hour, and so players get an extra hour of sleep. So it's not truly like players are playing at breakfast. It's actually more like when they actually start practice every day. So I feel like that is a sneaky advantage, that of all weeks to have that time change, to have it fall when you have to go and play in the time zone you do the worst in going east. I think that's a fantastic, fantastic advantage. Then yesterday, we know Nate Adkins, who this team just gushes about, has a knee injury. He was not put on injured reserve, which is a sign that he's going to be back at least by that Commanders game. We don't want to put him out for that full 4 weeks. And so we truly need a blocking tight end. That is something that he did phenomenally. We saw him used all over the field, lining up in the I-back formation, obviously just setting the edge there as the tight end. And so we needed to fill that role. So the Broncos went out and got Marcedes Lewis. Now, on first blush, this is like, you already have every other opposing fan base dunking on the Broncos, saying like, oh, you got a 41-year-old uncle. Like that, good for you, man. My man Graf, the Raiders creator, texted me, you guys are cooked. You're signing a 41-year-old. But dude, the more I looked into this, the more I heard Sean Payton like legitimately gush about him, and the more I went back and watched highlights of what he does well, the more hyped I was for exactly what this can be. So he was signed to our practice squad, and we know Sean Payton is the king of activating guys off of the practice squad. You get 3 of those before you have to take a roster spot with him. And so my guess is that you play him in these 3 games. I would not at all be shocked to see him starting against the Houston Texans. And you do that again against the Raiders and then again against the Chiefs, and then you hope Adkins is back by the time the Broncos play the Commanders after our bye week. Now, why would you go out and get a 41-year-old tight end? Like, we've looked at the graphs on here and made fun of Travis Kelce because tight end production drops off a cliff after they turn 35. So at 41, they must have nothing left in the tank. And from a pure receiving standpoint, I completely agree. That's not what he's being brought in to do whatsoever. He even said it when he was on a podcast last year. He said, for me, I'm here to abuse guys at the point of attack in the run game and in pass protection. So like that is what he is brought in to do. Sean Payton talked about him, and Sean Payton said, I feel like when this guy turns 50, he will still be able to block the D gap like nobody else. There are several YouTube videos out there that call him the best blocking tight end in the history of the NFL. We're going to look at a couple of highlights from that in a second. But you look here, 2021 through 2024, he didn't just play in all 17 games as an incredible blocker, but he also played in postseasons a lot of that time as a very, very good blocker. And Sean Payton came in today and said like, hey, incredible. He came in today that he got the call from the Broncos sitting in the sauna. He gets out of the sauna, dries off, hops on an airplane, and he's here and he's suited up and in practice and ready. Sean Payton said he came in tremendous shape and is ready to rock. And if we take a look here, you can see him, like this was just a couple of years ago. This was just 2 years ago, obviously able to make a couple of catches there. We see him here catch a touchdown. I think this is from Justin Fields, so this was 2 years ago. But you still see him like obviously being able to be like a catching tight end, but absolutely love seeing him as a blocker. So watch him here just light up a very, very good linebacker there in Eric Kendrick. So you just see him come across there. There's, this guy is massive, and you see he's accomplishing his mission. If his job is to abuse guys at the point of attack, that is absolutely what he does. He probably is famous most for like this catch that wasn't, right? The sick one-handed catch where his other bottom foot there does not come in inbounds. I'll zoom in here for it. You see his foot there falls out of bounds, but incredible leader on and off of the field, and the guys already are looking up to him. He already has the nickname Unk. And let's take a look here at some of the highlights of him as a blocker. So you see him right here. This is him going against Thibodeau. We just got to see Thibodeau just a couple of weeks ago, and you just see him hold his own. Like, that is just him holding down one of the better pass rushers in football, given just a completely clean pocket right there. And then we see him here against setting the edge for the run. And we see him here as a run blocker. This is going up against Phillips in his prime, so a very, very good edge rusher. There aren't a ton of tight ends in football who can go one-on-one against an edge rusher like Phillips. And you see him hold his own. Obviously, the running back does not get much more there than was blocked for. But the fact of the matter is Sean Payton is confident about him. His former teammates, from every stop along the way, like you saw Twitter just go nuts when he got signed, because people love this guy. He's a tremendous leader, and at the very worst case, if he does not have what it takes, you just keep him on the practice side. So this feels like a tremendously high upside move with not a ton of downside. All right, Broncos country, let's be real. This season alone, at the start of the preseason, I signed up for NFL Network so I could watch the Broncos, and I signed up for Peacock to watch some random game in December that I hadn't canceled any of them, but I did remember it because of today's sponsor, Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that lets you have a budget and stick to it, set goals. It lets you manage subscriptions and will actually help you cancel it so you don't have to go and do some chatbot online. Rocket Money does it all for you. As soon as I signed up, it went through and found subscriptions that I had yet to cancel, and I canceled it in the app. They also go to bat for you, and they'll help you lower your monthly bills. They'll actually negotiate with things like your internet companies or your TV company and try to help you find a lower rate. To save more, to spend less, I'm telling you, you are going to want to use Rocket Money. You can scan this QR code or use the link in my description, but save up for that next Broncos jersey. Don't be spending money on unnecessary subscriptions. There are a ton of features on Rocket Money that are completely free, and then there's even more if you sign up for the premium version, but you check out Rocket Money. You will not regret it. So other than the fact that Patrick Surtain, Marvin Mims, and Nate Adkins all did not practice today, you had the Broncos completely healthy. Well, I know that's like saying, like, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you like the play? Because you're talking Pat Surtain is the best defensive player in football. But I think it is worth noting that still go to any team webpage and look at their injury report, and we are still one of the healthiest teams in football, and Patrick Surtain is coming back sooner than people think, and we're going to get to that here in just a second. I also think Marvin Mims is going to be doing everything possible to play in this game. I had a really cool opportunity to interview Marvin Mims during the offseason, and this is where he is from. His entire family is from there. His grandparents were season ticket holders to the Houston Texans, so everybody is going to be in town for this game, and so if it is at all possible, I think Marvin Mims makes his return to football this week, and so we're just hoping that his concussion symptoms lessen. We'll definitely know more about that come Saturday, but I'm really hoping he's playing. And then we did see, again, like I said, Marcedes Lewis was a full practice participant. So Houston Texans have some real vulnerabilities, and I think it's worth noting that, like, they are a demonstrably worse team than the last time that we played them. Like, when the Broncos played them, even though we are way better under where Sean Payton is right now and Russell Wilson, the Denver Broncos had the ball at first and goal from like the 6-yard line, and Russell Wilson could not get that in, and the Broncos would have won that game against the Houston Texans. And we just saw that the Broncos since then have gone out and they've gotten healthier. That Bo Nix instead of Russell Wilson alone, getting Troy Franklin on this team, getting Marvin Mims more activated to this team. I think the Broncos offense is light years ahead of where it was the last time we played the Texans, and the defense has even improved under Vance Joseph. So I feel very good about that matchup. And when you look at the Texans on paper, they jump off the page of like, oh, this is the best defense in football. But I think it's worth noting that they have had a very easy schedule compared to what the Broncos have had. And so you look at their last 4 games, they played against Cooper Rush and the Baltimore Ravens, which nobody's scared of. The Ravens aren't the Ravens unless Lamar Jackson is there. They've played against the Titans, and the coach is then fired the week after they lose to them. They got mollywopped by the Seahawks, and then they beat the 49ers, which is the most injured team in the history of the NFL, with almost $100 million in salary cap on injured reserve, and it was a backup quarterback. So that's nothing like beating the Super Bowl champions in Philly and then flying to London and then flying back without a bye week and playing the hottest team in football in the Giants, and nothing like what the Broncos have done this year with some of our wins, and nothing like the Broncos going toe-to-toe with the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm feeling very, very good about that. I think without a doubt, this is going to be, as Swipa Cam says on here, this is going to be the best front seven the Texans have played all season long. This is definitely going to be the worst offensive line that the Broncos have played, and I think what you're going to see is the type of sack numbers that we had against Justin Fields in that game against the Jets. I think you're going to see again here, because without a doubt, this is one of the worst offensive lines in football, like historically bad. They broke an NFL record for the fastest sack of a quarterback in NFL history here against the hapless Titans. There's really only one guy on the Titans you want to block, and they consistently did not do that. Texans fans were thinking, like, what are we doing? We just saw, again, guys coming unblocked just into the backfield all day long for CJ Stroud. And I just think the Broncos are absolutely going to feast when it comes to that. The other help that I think we're getting here is, like, the way our bye week is falling is perfect for a Patrick Surtain return faster than we think. And there's a bunch of evidence that points to that. The fact that the Broncos didn't put him on injured reserve shows that he's at least going to be back for that Commanders game. And then we're starting to see some hints that he's going to be back for that Kansas City Chiefs game. So he has his own podcast with Terry Arnold, really cool podcast, and he ended his part about his injury saying, I'll be back out there in no time. And then we even heard Adam Schefter, who is the king of saying nothing with a lot of words. He is so careful with his words and doesn't put anything out there that could limit his access to teams in the future or jeopardize his journalistic stylings. And here's what he said about Pat Surtain.
Houston Texans, they play the Kansas City Chiefs on November 16th, I believe, and they're going to want Surtain back for that game.
He was starting to say, I believe he'll be back for that game, and he corrected himself and said they're going to want him back for that game. So I think Patrick Surtain comes back faster than you think. And you're talking about, man, if the Broncos can win these next two games, a Texans team that does not scare me, a Raiders team that does not scare me, and then they beat the Chiefs, the Broncos will run away with the AFC West at that point. So some huge games, and I think the Broncos are getting help. I think Marcedes Lewis is going to be a perfect fit. I think the time change is helping us as we are going to the Houston Texans, but let me know in the comments what you think about that. And then our offense is really starting to surge, right? If we looked at this graph here, puts EPA out there, and so what you have on this axis is how good your defense is. So you want to be higher up on there. So you see the Broncos in the upper quadrant here. And then you going left and right, you want to be further right. So the best place you could be would be like top right here. And you're seeing the Broncos on offense right now are only behind Indy, Kansas City, Green Bay, Buffalo, New England, Detroit, and Philadelphia, the best offenses in football. And that is despite playing against a bunch of great defenses this year. And so I'm very encouraged by that. And just like we saw last season, that Bo Nix peaks late, that Sean Payton's playbook is like the size of the third Harry Potter book. It is massive, and it takes time to implement, and it's not like you go from 0 to 100. It takes time to implement, and Bo Nix got way better as the season progressed last year, and we're seeing that same pattern repeat this year, yet we are way further ahead than where we were this time this year. So the Broncos are going to beat the Houston Texans, and then we're on to the Vegas Raiders. Broncos country, we got so much to Bo-LIEVE in. Woo! Bo don't lie.